Socialism in Europe and Russian Revolution.
The Russian Revolution of 1917 has been one of the important events of world history. It has been praised and condemned vigorously. It is hailed as it humanized capitalist systems all over the world. The Russian Revolution prompted governments all over the world to introduce legislative reforms to improve the conditions of workers. This had become necessary to ensure that the existing political systems were not overthrown the way it happened in Russia. It is condemned as it failed to hold together the republics that had come together to form the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR. The disintegration of USSR even before the 20th century came to a close and dealt a severe blow to people's faith in the Marxist ideology. When was the Russian Revolution? In 1917, two revolutions swept through Russia, ending centuries of imperial rule and setting into motion political and social changes that would lead to the formation of the Soviet Union. While the two revolutionary events took place within a few short months, social unrest in Russia had been simmering for decades. In the early 1900s, Russia was one of the most impoverished countries in Europe with an enormous peasantry and a growing minority of poor industrial workers. Much of Western Europe viewed Russia as an undeveloped, backward society. The Russian Empire practiced serfdom, a form of feudalism in which landless peasants were forced to serve the landowning nobility well into the 19th century. In contrast, the practice had disappeared in most of Western Europe by the end of the Middle Ages. In 1861, the Russian Empire finally abolished serfdom. The emancipation of serfs would influence the events leading up to the Russian Revolution by giving peasants more freedom to organize.
Society became more regimented, more tightly controlled. The Bolsheviks gradually pushed other parties out of the government, before eventually banning them altogether. Press censorship was stepped up, and under the leadership of Lenin, a one-party dictatorship was established, with the Bolsheviks renaming themselves the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. The new secret police force, the Cheka, soon gained a brutal reputation for its hardline crackdown on the least sign.
In Russia, the February Revolution, known as such because of Russia's use of the Julian calendar, begins when riots and strikes over the scarcity of food erupt in Petrograd. 1 week later, centuries of Tsarist rule in Russia ended with the abdication of Nicholas II, and Russia took a dramatic step closer toward communist revolution. Existing socialist parties in Europe did not wholly approve of the way the Bolsheviks took power, and kept it. However, the possibility of the workers' state fired people's imagination across the world. In many countries, communist parties were formed, like the Communist Party of Great Britain. The Bolsheviks encouraged colonial peoples to follow their experiment. Many non-Russians from outside the USSR participated in the Conference of the Peoples of the East, 1920, and the Bolshevik-founded Comintern, an international union of pro-Bolshevik socialist parties. Some received education in the USSR's Communist University of the Workers of the East. By the time of the outbreak of the Second World War, the USSR had given socialism the global face and world stature.